They told you this your entire life. Coaches said it. Fitness magazines printed it on every other page. Friends who woke up at 5 a.m. to meal prep swore by it. Eat before you move. Fuel the machine. Without food in your system, your body turns on itself. Your muscles cannibalize, your blood sugar crashes, your performance collapses, and you crawl back inside, having done more damage than good. That warning followed you through every gym membership, every running phase, every attempt to build something better with your body. And for years, maybe decades, you believed it without ever once stopping to ask whether it was actually true. But this morning is different. Maybe it's a quiet restlessness. Maybe it's the kind of mild rebellion that only surfaces in the early hours when no one is watching and the rules feel optional. Maybe you simply aren't hungry yet, and for the first time you decide, just this once, to see what actually happens if you don't eat first. So you lace up your shoes. You step outside into the cool silence of the morning, the air carrying that particular stillness that belongs only to people who are awake before the world demands anything from them. Or maybe you walk into a gym, or head to a park, or unroll a mat in your living room. And within the first few minutes, something begins happening that nobody warned you about. Something the entire pre-workout nutrition industry has a financial interest in making sure you never discover.
Instead of your legs turning to concrete, instead of your vision blurring at the edges and your body issuing emergency distress signals, you feel something unexpected move through you, something almost electrical. Your mind, which was wrapped in that familiar morning fog just minutes ago, begins to sharpen in a way that feels almost unearned. Your body feels strangely unencumbered, lighter than usual, like something heavy has been quietly set down without you noticing. Your breathing finds its rhythm faster than normal. Your movements feel fluid, clean, effortless in a way you cannot immediately explain. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a question begins to form that will not leave you alone for the rest of the day. Why does this feel so good? Why did nobody tell me about this? Here's the answer, and it starts with dismantling one of the most deeply embedded lies in modern fitness culture. Most people carry an assumption so automatic they've never even examined it. The belief that the food they eat in the 30 minutes before a workout is what directly powers their muscles during that session. The banana grabbed on the way out the door, the protein shake blended in the dark, the handful of almonds eaten standing over the kitchen counter as an afterthought. The logic feels airtight. You eat, your body gets fuel, your muscles use that fuel. Clean, simple, intuitive, and almost entirely wrong.
Digestion is not a rapid process. It is slow, layered, and remarkably sequential. That banana you just ate is still sitting in your stomach being broken down by acid and enzymes while you're already halfway through mile 2. The nutrients from that food haven't entered your bloodstream. They certainly haven't reached your muscles. The energy powering your run, your lift, your morning session right now, it isn't coming from your last meal. It's coming from something far older, far more reliable, and far more powerful than anything sitting on your kitchen counter. Your muscles are fueled by internal reserves your body has been quietly maintaining for exactly these moments. Glycogen, stored carbohydrate held in your liver and muscle tissue, ready to be deployed within seconds of physical demand. And beyond that, the vast, largely untapped reservoir of energy locked inside your own body fat. Even a relatively lean person carries enough stored fat energy to fuel dozens of hours of continuous movement without consuming a single calorie. The food you eat before a workout isn't powering you. Your body is powering you. It always was. Fasted exercise isn't about depriving your body of fuel. It's about teaching it to unlock the fuel it's been storing this entire time. When you begin training in a fasted state, something profound is set in motion beneath the surface. Think of it as a system reboot. If you've spent years fueling before every workout, your metabolism has hardened into predictable, habitual patterns. It expects glucose. It waits for it like a machine waiting for the right input. For years, it has been operating in an environment of consistently elevated insulin, the hormone released every single time you eat, which functions as a continual signal telling your cells that energy is abundant and fat burning can be postponed indefinitely. There is always more food coming. There is never any need to access the reserves. In a fasted state, that signal disappears. Insulin drops to its lowest point in the last 24 hours, and that low insulin environment is the biological green light your body has been waiting for, the signal that finally grants permission for fatty acids to be pulled from storage and sent into circulation as fuel. But here's the part nobody mentions in the nutrition articles and the fitness influencer posts. In the beginning, your cellular machinery hasn't yet been optimized for this kind of fuel. The enzymes responsible for processing fatty acids are underdeveloped. The mitochondria haven't yet been trained for the task. Like an engine that has run exclusively on one type of fuel being asked to switch to another mid-journey, there's an adjustment period, and it is uncomfortable enough to make most people quit before the real transformation begins.
Those first few fasted sessions may feel heavy. Your legs might drag. Your focus might flicker. A subtle fog might make the difficult moments feel harder to push through than they usually are. And if you stop there, if you interpret that discomfort as proof that the warnings were right all along, you will miss everything. Because underneath that temporary resistance, something extraordinary is already being assembled. Studies published in the Journal of Physiology found that during these initial sessions, your body isn't just passively burning through whatever fuel it can find. It is actively upgrading its fat-burning enzymes, the molecular machinery responsible for extracting energy from fatty acids. Your cells are being structurally rewired. The discomfort you feel isn't failure, it is renovation. And by the end of the first week, the renovation starts to show. The heaviness begins to lift, the fog clears, energy levels stabilize, and for many people, more people than the conventional nutrition industry would ever want to advertise, those energy levels actually improve beyond what they experience training in a fed state. This is when the hormonal landscape begins its most dramatic shift, and this is where the science gets genuinely extraordinary.
One of the most significant changes occurring inside you during fasted exercise is a powerful surge in growth hormone. Not a modest bump, but a dramatic elevation that reshapes the entire metabolic environment of your body. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation documented that the combination of fasting and exercise can increase growth hormone production by 5 to 6 times its normal baseline. 5 to 6 times. This isn't a rounding error. This is a biological emergency response. Your body deploying growth hormone as a protective signal, placing your muscle tissue and bone density under guard while it redirects its energy extraction efforts toward body fat. Growth hormone communicates with unmistakable clarity that these tissues are not available as fuel. Not now, not while I'm watching. At the same time, your cells are undergoing a quieter but equally important transformation. They are becoming extraordinarily sensitive to insulin, not in a way that causes problems, but in a way that fundamentally changes how your body handles everything you eat after your workout. When you finally break your fast and consume that post-exercise meal, something remarkable happens to those incoming calories. Instead of the normal spillover into fat storage that follows eating in a sedentary or metabolically sluggish state, your body redirects those nutrients with surgical precision toward muscle repair, toward glycogen replenishment, toward rebuilding every tissue you just challenged. You are becoming what metabolic researchers call metabolically flexible. Your body is developing the ability to transition fluidly between burning sugar and burning fat, to shift fuel sources based on what's actually available rather than getting locked into one mode and struggling the moment circumstances change. Metabolic flexibility is increasingly recognized as one of the most meaningful indicators of long-term health, more predictive of future wellness than body weight, more important than many of the conventional biomarkers your annual checkup still obsesses over. And it's something most people in the modern world have quietly lost, trained out of their own biology by a food environment that ensures fuel is always available and the body never has to remember how to manage without it. Move forward to the end of your first month of consistent fasted exercise and the changes become measurable rather than felt.
A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Nutrition, drawing on dozens of individual studies, found that training in a fasted state can increase fat oxidation, the actual rate at which your body burns fat as fuel, by 20 to 30% compared to training after eating. 20 to 30%. That is not a footnote. That is a fundamental reorganization of your metabolism, one that operates not just during the workout itself, but during rest, during sleep, during every quiet hour between sessions. But here is where the story takes a turn that surprises almost everyone. Because the most profound changes unfolding through this practice are not in your muscles or your fat tissue. They are occurring inside your brain. When blood sugar is low and stable, when your liver begins producing ketones from the breakdown of stored fat, your brain receives a qualitatively different type of fuel. Ketones are remarkably efficient energy molecules. They generate more ATP, the cellular currency of energy, per unit of oxygen consumed compared to glucose. They produce less oxidative stress as a byproduct of combustion. They burn, in a very real biochemical sense, cleaner. And beyond the fuel itself, the mild controlled stress of fasted movement triggers the release of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This molecule supports the repair of existing neurons, encourages the formation of new neural connections, and plays a direct role in mood stability, emotional resilience, and the capacity for sustained focus. It is, in the most literal sense available to biology, a growth signal for your brain.
As people who adapt to fasted exercise consistently describe a quality of mental clarity during those morning sessions that feels different from anything else in their day. Not the wired alertness of caffeine, which borrows against tomorrow to pay for today. Not the fragile focus that evaporates the moment something interrupts it. Something cleaner, steadier, more expansive. Thoughts arrive with unusual sharpness. Complex problems feel more tractable. The absorbed, frictionless mental state that psychologists call flow becomes easier to access and easier to sustain. You are not just training your cardiovascular system and your muscles during these sessions. You are actively participating in the maintenance and enhancement of your own cognitive hardware.
By the 3-month mark, the adaptations are no longer functional. They are structural. Your mitochondria, the organelles inside every cell responsible for producing the vast majority of your energy, have become more numerous and dramatically more efficient through a process called mitochondrial biogenesis. You can now generate more energy with less metabolic waste, less oxidative stress, and greater sustained output. The engine hasn't been tuned. It has been rebuilt from the inside out. Long-term research highlighted by Dr. Mark Mattson in the New England Journal of Medicine points to another benefit that rarely receives the attention it deserves. People who regularly practice fasted exercise show measurable reductions in chronic inflammation markers, specifically C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, both strongly associated with accelerated biological aging, elevated disease risk, and metabolic dysfunction. Lower levels of these markers mean reduced risk for chronic disease, faster recovery from physical stress, improved immune resilience, and compounding health returns that accumulate quietly over years and decades in ways that never show up in a single workout, but eventually define the entire trajectory of how you age.
And here is the part of the story that puts all of this into its true context. For something close to 99% of human history, for the vast majority of the time our species has walked this planet, physical effort and an empty stomach were not separate experiences. They were the same experience. Our ancestors did not consume a balanced meal before engaging in physical activity. They engaged in physical activity in order to obtain a meal. They hunted, they tracked, they covered enormous distances on foot through varied, demanding terrain. They carried weight, solved complex spatial problems, made rapid life or death decisions, all of it happening in a state of metabolic depletion, not metabolic abundance, all of it happening hungry. What this means from an evolutionary perspective is clarifying in a way that changes how you understand your own body. The humans whose genes we carry today, the survivors across hundreds of thousands of years of human prehistory, were the ones whose minds sharpened when food was scarce, rather than dulling, whose muscles moved with power and efficiency, even when the last meal was many hours or even days behind them, whose focus tightened under the pressure of hunger, rather than collapsing. Because the alternative wasn't performing at 90%. The alternative was not surviving long enough to pass anything forward.
We are designed at the deepest biological level available to us to be at our most capable in a hungry state. Modern life has inverted this completely. We have constructed an environment of perpetual food availability that has no precedent in the entire evolutionary history of our species. And our bodies, shaped over millennia by long cycles of feast and famine, abundance and depletion, are struggling to adapt to the unrelenting, uninterrupted feast. Fasted exercise doesn't reject modernity. It selectively reconnects you with biological patterns your body still recognizes and responds to with a speed and power that should, honestly, take your breath away. Now, the full picture demands honesty. Fasted exercise is a tool, a powerful one, but it is not universally superior for every application or appropriate for every individual. For genuinely high-intensity efforts, maximal sprints, near maximum strength sessions, explosive interval work, where peak power output is the metric that matters, research does document a potential 10 to 15% reduction in performance when muscle glycogen is depleted and blood glucose is low. If your only goal in a given session is setting a personal record where fractions of a second matter, some carbohydrate before that specific session may serve you better.
But for the vast majority of what most people actually do, steady cardio, recreational training, general fitness, sub-maximal strength sessions, fasted exercise not only works beautifully once adaptation is complete, it often feels measurably better than training fed. There are also specific circumstances where extra caution is not optional. Pregnancy and breastfeeding create metabolic demands that make fasting inappropriate. Anyone with a history of disordered eating should approach this carefully, if at all, given the psychological complexity that can arise at the intersection of food restriction and exercise. Women with already low body fat or high overall physiological stress loads may find that extended fasted training elevates cortisol to levels that begin interfering with reproductive hormones, sometimes manifesting as menstrual irregularities before any other warning sign appears. And for anyone managing type 1 diabetes, the unpredictable blood glucose dynamics created by fasted exercise make it genuinely dangerous without direct medical supervision and a clearly established glucose management protocol.
When you begin, start conservatively. A 30-minute brisk walk, an easy ride, gentle movement that keeps you in what exercise physiologists call Zone 2, a heart rate range where fat oxidation is naturally at its peak and metabolic stress remains productive rather than damaging. Drink water before and during your session. Consider adding a pinch of quality sea salt or a sugar-free electrolyte mix, because fasting lowers insulin, which causes the kidneys to excrete more sodium than usual, and dehydration arrives faster in a fasted state than most people expect. When you finish, wait. Give yourself 30 to 60 minutes before eating. That extended window after exercise allows fat oxidation to remain elevated, allows growth hormone to stay high a little longer, allows the cellular cleanup process called autophagy to continue its quiet maintenance work on your biology. When you finally eat, break your fast with quality protein to support muscle repair, healthy fats, and eventually carbohydrates to restore glycogen. You are not eating carelessly. You are completing a deliberate cycle: stress and recovery, depletion and rebuilding, challenge and nourishment. Each cycle leaves you slightly more resilient than the one before it.
Add small pauses between key ideas. It is not punishment. It is not deprivation theater. It is not a test of how much discomfort you can endure to prove something to yourself.
It is biological maintenance. It is giving your cells the precise conditions they need to clean house, upgrade their machinery, and remember capabilities that constant eating has been quietly suppressing for years. You are sending your body a message at the deepest level it knows how to receive. A message that says an empty stomach is not an emergency. That hunger is not a crisis requiring immediate chemical intervention. That everything needed to move with power, to think with clarity, to perform at a genuinely high level is already present inside you, already stored, already waiting. You are not just burning fat during these sessions, though that certainly happens and compounds meaningfully over time. You are building a more resilient metabolism. You are developing insulin sensitivity that will protect you for decades. You are generating mitochondria that will serve your energy production for years. You are triggering autophagy that keeps your cellular environment clean, functional, and biologically younger than the calendar would suggest. You are cultivating the kind of metabolic flexibility that frees you from rigid meal timing, from the energy crashes that follow eating, from the constant dependency on external fuel just to feel like yourself.
These are not temporary effects. They are not feelings that fade when the novelty does. They are structural changes to the way your biology operates, and they compound quietly, invisibly, over time, showing up not just in your workouts, but in the quality of your focus through a full afternoon, the stability of your mood through a difficult week, the consistency of your energy across an entire day, and the long, slow arc of your health across an entire life. The science is there. It is consistent. It spans multiple disciplines, and it has accumulated across decades of serious research. The question was never really whether it works. The question is simply whether you're willing to test it against your own lived experience. Not as a permanent identity, not as a complete lifestyle overhaul you have to commit to forever before you even understand what it is. Just once, tomorrow morning, before breakfast, 20 minutes, walk outside. Notice your mind. Notice your body. Notice whether what the science has been quietly saying for decades matches what you actually feel when you give your biology the chance to remember what it was always built to do.